This is a 2002 Pontiac, Montana. It has a severe oil leak in the timing chain cover area. The seal and the cover gasket's already been replaced once or twice. I'm going to replace it myself this time and stop the oil leaking. I tracked it down, the leaking from the seal, and one of the main bearing bolts going through the oil pan was loose, and the seal between the oil pan and the timing cover, the silicone bead, is leaking oil. 3 places. It just ruined them out. When I was testing it, I went ahead and pulled the mount out of it to get a better look at where the oil is coming from. And I just set the motor on a piece of 4x4. One of the first things I wanted to do, take this strut loose. I already impacted the bolts loose, so I can get to raise the motor up and down without taking the frame out of it or letting it down on that side with any luck. Next thing I need to do is drain the antifreeze out of it and pull the oil drain plug, because there will be leftover antifreeze heading down to there. I'm going to get it off the ground, take this passenger wheel back off, get the fluids draining out of it. Well, I said remove the antifreeze, but I guess in this case remove the straight water. The antifreeze drain is on the driver's side. That butterfly right there. I took the radiator cap off to facilitate the draining. I noticed brown sludge on the radiator cap. That's the first signs on these 3.1s, 3.4s that the intake gasket's going bad. Oil floating in the reserve. Thought that it had any reserve fluid in it. Because the first sign, you need to get the intake gaskets changed before you crack the heads on it. That brown sludge. In my opinion, these gaskets first go bad, and the system, when it cools off, gets a suction on it, and it sucks the motor oil in around them. And when it gets pressure on it, they seal back up, but the motor oil gets an intrusion into the antifreeze system. And after so long a period of that time, which is unpredictable, the gaskets fill with the pressure and start sweeping antifreeze into the engine oil pan, or the valley area. And then usually the second phase you'll see is external grease or leakage of the gaskets here. In the third phase, you'll see moisture form up on the fill cap, cream colored. This one doesn't seem to be there yet. I'd say the gasket's probably been changed before. They make a metal set of reinforced rubber gaskets, which is excellent. I've used them and never had one come back, and I didn't have to worry about resurfacing the intake or the heads due to the etching from electrolysis. The factory gaskets wouldn't seal those depressions very well. and it would fail unless you either dug those depressions out, filled them with some type of epoxy, or had them took the head and intake in and have them resurfaced, which is expensive to go through that whole procedure if the heads are cracked. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and take this plastic guard off that shows the belt diagram and the accessory belt. Just stick a ratchet in that tensioner arm and pull it forward. It's got a square hole in it. Always make sure you got clearance between your ratchet and what you're backing up against so you don't get it stuck in there. I took the alternator off. If you're skittish about electrical shorts, now would be a good time to unhook the battery. Because there's a direct battery hookup right here. This one's covered and there's nothing really around to get into it. I put a bungee cord stretching from the front alternator over to the throttle bracket. I took bolts out of this aluminum piece. There's two here, one in the tensioner arm, and then there's, after you get the alternator raised up, there's a mystery one, 15mm down in the back there. That one. It's beside the stud you left in, or the bolt left in for the alternator to slide out from underneath of it. Have to take that one off to get this aluminum L-shaped bracket off of it. The power steering pump should be free to navigate. I'm going to get that bracket out of the way so I can pull the power steering pump up out of there. I'll leave the lines hooked up to it. Well, the bracket's already fallen away, so be advised this bracket has two pieces. One's the engine puller hanger. It comes off with it. There's a locating hole for the tensioner arm. Dialer pulley stays on. I'm going ahead and moving this strut bar here. Had a bolt in the end of it and two down here. Holds this power distribution box up part of the way. Need to disconnect this water outlet pipe and this hose. This hose is leaking, so I'm replacing it. It's bolted down to the timing cover here. Take this whole assembly loose. Hose. I got that water pipe assembly up out of there. It had some give to it. I think somebody's unhooked it over there already, so I left the bolt out of it. Go ahead and take this lower radiator hose off. Get it out of the way. I went ahead and pulled this power supply wire out of this power distribution box. It wasn't giving me enough room here. I needed a hole to pull that aluminum piece up out of there. And like I say, if you're worried about shorts or something, unhook the battery or tape the end of that up. keep it from touching any metal. I've already put it up on a jack stand. Took the plastic out of it. I bungee corded the engine harness as far as back as I could get slack out of it. Go ahead and take that bolt out of the idler pulley and take it off. I'm going ahead and taking all these cover bolts loose I can get at up here at the top. This bottom 15mm one. Have your drain pan ready underneath that side of the engine because it's in a water jacket. That one down there. Probably in a quart and a half or so antifreeze or water or whatever will run out. So unless you want to mess under it, put a drain pan under it. I'm going ahead and taking a typical GM dampener puller and pulling this off. I have the repair sleeve on it, but it looks pretty rough. The seal's damaged, and it's pushed in, and it's dented. Yep, that will cause it to leak. Plus that orange silicone mess is leaking oil, and the main bearing cap bolt's loose, slinging oil off the crank, no doubt. Now I'll get it straightened up. I was going to say it's time to remove the crank sensor bracket hold down, but the wire's not under it, and the dampener is starting to cut a gash through it. That red is one of the sensor wires. That's not silicone, it's a sensor wire. The insulation getting more off of the crank sensor wire, and borderline getting ready to short it out where the van will stall. But go ahead and take the holder off if it's on there and unplug that sensor. And go ahead and take the remaining 10mm out. I went ahead and took the crank sensor off the timing cover just so I don't stress it out. That wire is pretty weak looking. It probably could use a new one. But there's why the seal was leaking. There's a big gap in the silicone. Not that I would use orange silicone for anything car related. That 1.1" long gap, you see through the oil pan in it. There's a bolt missing out of the oil pan, the front of it. I have to find a bolt for that. It's like 10mm head. And all I have to do is pry get all the bolts out of the timing cover. Just need to pop it loose. Yeah, this may set a record for a dandy. Look at that hole closed up with silicone. I can't imagine what that side was like. Seal pushed in against the cover here. Got a warp on it there. This needs cleaned off. All of that needs cleaned off. This hole needs cleaned out thoroughly. Some fine sandpaper to clean up any rough edges in it. A new O-ring needs put on that water pipe that goes into that. And a new seal.